Welcome back to the Drive Home Reviews podcast, where I review the movies that I have just seen as I am driving home from the theater. And no pun intended, folks, but buckle up because we have a lot to talk about with this one. It's funny to me that this innocuous little movie, this film that I have no doubt is going to jump to streaming from the theater so fast that most people will probably believe it was a Netflix original to begin with. And yet somehow this film has got so much in it that I want to talk about in terms of what the fuck went wrong here. I have trouble sometimes coming up with enough material for big blockbusters. Because, what else can you say about Spider-Man Brand New Day? I mean, it's all up there on the screen. But man, this film, there's a lot I want to get to. There is a lot I want to talk about. I've tried my best to arrange my thoughts in a coherent manner so as to keep my arguments and my points and examples coherent. But I'm probably going to be all over the place, even more than usual, and I'll probably get off on more than a few side rants. So, just fair warnings, because I think that is just something that happens when you deal with a movie that, for as tiny and as, just common as it feels, tries to up its stature with a really high concept. Okay? High concept comedies and movies were very, very common back in the 80s, and even, segueing into the 90s there. But definitely in the 80s, it feels like you could get away with really bizarre setups for movies, and especially comedies, and nobody would really bat an eye. I always kind of go back to the example of Twins. You can't just say, hey, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Danny DeVito, two guys who look nothing alike are somehow twins, and leave it at that. You have to come up with this weird, Captain America, super soldier, perfect human, evil scientist backstory, along with something about a stolen jet engine to make it all come together. And we just kind of accepted it. We went, okay, yeah. I don't know. Maybe it really just was a simpler time. Maybe it was a time before we became so jaded with, cinema sins and quote-unquote critics pointing out plot holes like that's the same thing as offering legit criticism. Maybe we just hadn't yet lost that childlike wonder that allowed us to kind of suspend disbelief and enjoy just a silly premise for its own sake. Maybe it was the mountains of cocaine and the excessive hairspray pilferating the atmosphere, being sucked in through our noses and creating a high that was just spectacular. Whatever the reason, you don't get a lot of high concept movies these days for the exact reasons this one perfectly illustrates, because there is an incredibly fine line between how much you can tell or explain about the concept before the movie has to become about the concept. So for those who don't know, the concept of this movie is that in the not too distant future, a law has been passed wherein premarital sex is only legal for 1 day a year. And during the rest of the year, people seem to abide by this law and use this day, which they don't actually give a date for, it's just a day, but use this date as just a chance to go crazy and do everything with everyone and everything. It's the Purge for your boner. Okay? And into this night, we get our two main characters. We have, I don't remember either one of the characters' names, so but we have Colin Turner, who plays our male hero, who is a pizzeria owner, who is going to propose to his girlfriend, but she tells him that on this night she's decided she's going to have sex with their neighbor because she just wants to experiment, and encourages him to go do the same. So he's out there trying to, basically get back at her or prove that he's not a prude. I guess, I don't know, motivations are kind of unclear. We'll talk about that. On the other side, we have Monica Barbaro, I hope I'm pronouncing her name right, who is a young lady who is out looking not just for the mindless sex, but is out looking for a real connection. She wants to meet a Prince Charming, a really good guy that she can actually have an emotional connection with, which, okay, fine, but with the premise of this movie, that's like going to a candy maker's convention and trying to find the salad bar. Like, it just seems like this is not the night to be doing that. And, in their various attempts to have sex with various different strangers, they keep running into each other. Of course, they form a bond, and anybody who's ever seen a movie before knows where this is going. Okay. There's our premise. This movie doesn't work. Let's just lay that out right there. It doesn't work. And as I've said, it's because when you have a concept like this, you've got to be very careful about how you use it. So this is an example. Most people probably don't even remember this movie, but there was a film a few years back called The Invention of Lying. It was a Ricky Gervais movie. And in that movie, in this world, lying didn't exist. That's all. And he doesn't spend a lot of time explaining why lying doesn't exist, how people could evolve without developing the skill of deception. He doesn't get into how that changes, world history. It's just lying doesn't exist. That's all you need to know, because the joke of the movie is this guy invents lying and throws his whole society on its ear. That's all you really need to know about it. He goes into detail about how the world works without lying, but not how we got to that point without lying. Okay? Because if he spent all that time, then the movie would have to become about that. And I'm going to go into more detail about that here in just a minute. But long story short, the biggest problem with this movie is its concept doesn't work. And the execution of its concept doesn't work. All right? So we're going to separate this into two sections. I'm going to try. The first section that we're going to talk about, that's just this movie as your rom-com with this being the hook of it. Okay? Where it's nothing but the hook. Then we'll talk about this movie as it relates to this premise and how the two things don't coincide. All right? So that's how we're going to work on this. So as a movie with just this as its premise, you have one night to bone, in the year, and then you gotta wait. It doesn't fucking work. And it doesn't fucking work because if you remove that element from this and just say this was happening on Valentine's Day, the movie doesn't change. Minor details would change. Things like, condoms being, the prices of them being jacked up on that day. Okay, that might change things slightly. But the overall joke of, because that's one of the other rules about this future, is that you can have sex, but you have to use protection. All right. So one of the first plot points is Colin Turner wanting to have sex with his bartender, and she asks him, "Do you have a condom?" And he's running all, and of course all the condoms are gone. Okay, but you see how that could still be a thing if you just set this on Valentine's Day? None of the beats of this movie change at all if you just said this was, Valentine's Day or New Year's Eve, even any kind of big party where people are known to hook up, Mardi Gras. None of it changes. There's no premise specific elements in this that can't be, just transplanted into any other random holiday. So that's your big problem, and it leads to some of the other major problems with this just as a rom-com, just looking at it as a romantic comedy. And one of the big problems with this, especially keeping this premise in mind, is that, I'm sorry, I have a real hard time believing that these two conventionally attractive human beings, Colin Turner certainly isn't my cup of tea, but he is a fairly well-built young man, and I can see how the opposite sex would be attracted to him. Monica Barbarino, sorry I have to be heterosexual here, folks. Yeah, she's gorgeous. She's a gorgeous young woman, and she has to go through this whole movie wearing a dress that looks like something one of the female characters in Mortal Kombat back in the 90s would have worn. It's so short, it's revealing everything, and big props to her that she had to do a lot of running and I don't want to say stunts, but she had to do a lot in this very, very restrictive outfit. So props to her. She must have been freezing for a lot of the shoot. But yeah, I do not fear for an instant that neither one of these two could find someone to fuck. Yeah. And this again is where the problem comes in. To me, it would have been more interesting if on this night the focus had been on people who maybe aren't conventionally attractive, or people who don't have anything even remotely resembling game. People who, despite their best intentions or best efforts, just have never had the art of flirting or the art of, chatting up a pretty girl or handsome guy, depending on where you go. And so now that desperation is intensified with this, I gotta do it. This is the one night, maybe I have a chance. Where are the people in this movie who are, all right, let's just be honest, that are like me? If this was a real thing, I'm telling you right now, people, I would be so fucked, and not in the way that I'd be trying to be. Because I have zero game. I am the worst at talking to women. I suck. Just plain out and out suck.
Here's my personal book of pickup lines. Say as many of them as you can, as fast as you can. Don't stop for any reason.
Mimi, if I said you had a beautiful body, would you take your pants off and dance around a little?
What?
I find the most erotic part of a woman is the boobies.
Kev!
Oh my.
You gotta have some faith in yourself, man. Girls can smell fear. Now, come on.
You know something? You're right, Tuck. I'm gonna do it.
Whatever you say, just smile and laugh. That shows confidence.
Smile and laugh. You guys, going camping?
There's this scene at a bar where Monica Barbaro is, trying to hook up, and she's meeting all these rejects. And one of the guys she's talking to is this smaller guy. He's got glasses, automatic film shorthand for he's a nerd, and he's doing magic tricks with cards, fairly impressive ones. I have to be honest. And she seems like she's genuinely impressed. But obviously she's not going to end up with him. But it's like, that's the guy I kind of want to see her get with. That's the kind of guy that, maybe that would be a much more compelling story with this ticking clock. So yeah, I can't quite work up the sympathy or the urgency for these two people who are very attractive young people, and I'm sure you're going to find someone to fuck you. I have no fear of that. But on that, I got to be honest here, guys. One of the other problems is there's just no chemistry between our two leads. There's absolutely none. They don't have an ease about them. They don't have a smoothness to their interactions, an effortlessness about the way they talk to each other. And in a movie like this, where the whole gag is that you're running around and you're getting with all these people and the person you should be with is right there in front of you, that's really important. That's very important that the main love interest, that they have a connection and they have an ease about their interactions. It's to differentiate it from all the other ones they're going with. Monica Barbaro has more chemistry with one of the first guys she tries to hook up with, which ends in hilarity, theoretically. But they have way more chemistry and work better together. Like, the casting should have been flipped. This guy should have been the main hero, and Colin Turner should have been playing his role. And I gotta, and this is another thing, okay, I'm trying not to be too mean here, because I'm sure Colin Turner is a nice guy. Clearly, he's a decent actor. He's got a filmography. It's more than I got, so I'm trying to be nice here. But I don't know if it's just the character, the way the character is written, but God, this guy is a fucking idiot. Like, I don't know if it's just Colin Turner. So first of all, like I said, I don't believe Colin Turner is conventionally attractive, to my mind. Granted, this is a heterosexual male's perspective, but I feel I'm confident enough in my masculinity that I can admit when another man is attractive. Hugh Jackman, for example. But this guy, I do not see the face, it's not working. And plus, he's always got this look on his face like he's confounded with how shoelaces work. It's kind of like back in the heyday of Grey's Anatomy. Patrick, whatever his name is, the guy who played McSteamy, whatever the fuck his name was, he always looked like he'd just been hit in the face with a fish. Go look at any of the press clippings from that time, and like every image of him just has this look on his face like, you just hit me in the face with a fish. Colin Turner constantly has that look on his face throughout this entire movie. Even when he's trying, and it looks like when he's trying to be confident, it hurts him. It physically causes him pain. His face does not look comfortable. And maybe that's supposed to be the point. Again, he's off his game. He's not supposed to, he's been in a relationship for a number of years, so this is his first time back on this night trying to attract somebody. So yeah, maybe that's supposed to be the point. Maybe it's actually brilliant acting, and I just didn't get it. But I'm sorry, nothing about this works. It also feels like he changes from a confident business owner to Jason Biggs from American Pie, like on a dime. None of his segments of this film feel smooth or coherent. And the problem is, as I believe, is because they're not consistent with the character they say they have set up. When his girlfriend decides she's going to go and have sex with this other guy, he goes to this bar and does the complaining and the drinking, and he says the words you should never fucking say. Never fucking say. Those words, I'm a nice guy. I'm a good guy. Don't ever fucking say that. Okay? Especially in a movie like this. Because the people in movies like this who declare themselves a good guy and a nice guy, their actions never confirm it. Never forget that back in the day, Ross Geller and Ted Mosby's characters were supposed to be nice guys. That was the whole thing. They were the nice guy, the good guy. And yet their actions never, ever backed up that assertion. So it became this thing that they just said to justify why things never, and had to put the blame on somebody else instead of looking at themselves and going, wow, I'm kind of a shit human being. And while we're on the subject, if you'll permit me a brief digression, why the fuck now are we suddenly discovering that, hey, Ross Geller was a little problematic? You seen this? People saying it's like, yeah, I said that back in the fucking 90s when the show was on, going, hey, this guy ain't right. You know, what he's doing isn't okay. But now all of a sudden people are like, well, wait a minute. Kind of like American Beauty. Why is it now people are looking at it and going, hey, you know, this Oscar-winning movie about a middle-aged man actively lusting over his high school daughter's cheerleading teammate, that's actually kind of sick. Yeah, no fucking shit. Again, I was saying this back when the fucking movie came out. Why all of a sudden now are we deciding that this was a problem?
I'm sorry, it's my problem. I'll deal with it.
Okay, where was I? Sorry. Oh yes, the nice guy. So, if you want your character in a movie like this to be a nice guy, then you have to show us. Don't just have him declare it. Because again, that just sounds like he's trying to find a way to blame everyone else for his bullshit. Show us. For instance, he has the chance at various times to hook up with other women. Maybe instead of wacky hijinks coming into it to break up each one of these potential interactions, maybe it could actually be him going, hey, you know what? This doesn't feel right. This isn't, hang on, I don't know. Wait a minute. Something's not, you know, actually show through his actions that he's conflicted, that this doesn't feel right to him. That shows us this is a nice guy, or this is a guy who wants more than just sex, even if he doesn't know it. But just having him go, oh, I'm a nice guy. No, that fucking doesn't make it okay for him to go and do all this shit. His segments are very, very inconsistent with the characterization. Monica Barbara's are actually very well done. Because she is someone who is looking for a connection, but she's easily blinded by the surface. And all of her interactions follow that pattern, that she's taken in by the package and not actually taking the time to unwrap it and see what's inside. That actually sounds gross when you put it into this context, but you know what I'm saying. So all of her interactions actually follow a fairly cohesive character, but his do not, and as such they collide and they just don't fucking work. Before I move on to the second part of this, I should say that, you know, were there any parts of this movie that did work? There was one joke that I actually thought was really funny and really, really well done, almost to the film's detriment. So Monica Barbara's character, her job is that she's a singer, but she's a singer for ad jingles, right? And the way they reveal this is, this is a rom-com, so rom-coms have a fairly recognizable soundtrack, right? They have kind of those same songs here on all of them. I can't remember the name of it, but they've got the one, I love you, and I miss you, and I would walk 1,000 miles, that. It's got that one and some other ones, right? And it starts playing that one, and you're like, okay, standard rom-com soundtrack, but then it turns out she's singing it, and she starts singing these lyrics about, and I will cure your sciatica. Like she's doing an ad jingle for medicine. and they do that a couple of times for this, where she's walking down the street, and I can't remember the song they're parodying, but that your typical kind of rom-com music is playing, and all of a sudden he goes, and I use these wipes on my vagina, and my vag smells great, and I'm just like, what? And yeah, that was fucking hilarious. To the point where, again, it almost works against the film, because one of her big plot points, of course, is that she wants to be a real singer, but she has stage fright. This doesn't come up prior to this moment. When she's in the recording booth, her main comment to the guy producing it is that, can't we do something real? Can't we, it's a fucking ad jingle. How real do you want to be? And what I find also funny about this is I know commercials like that exist. I remember back in junior high in math class, our math teacher used to leave the radio on while we were doing just our in-class assignment. And I remember very distinctly, this song came on, and it was this beautiful song, and it was just about love and about, I want to share things with you, and I want you to know the way I feel. It was so beautiful. And so have a Coca-Cola. And I was like, the fuck? And that's what this reminded me of. Anyway, sorry, got off on a tangent. Back on track. So she has stage fright. Well, they go to a party, and Colin Turner gets her up on stage to sing, and she of course, again, if you've seen a movie before, you know how this comes out. She overcomes her stage fright, and she's singing, and everybody's like, and he's watching her and really paying attention and is captivated by her. And I kept expecting her to fall back into bad habits, and suddenly in the middle of this actually very heartfelt song, starts singing about Vagiclear or something like. So it kind of robbed the movie of this one of its supposedly poignant moments. I actually think they should have gone there. Because I think that's indicative of the whole thing. They needed to go further with this. If they wanted this as a hook, they needed to go further. This should have been a little bit more of a better taste American Pie. A sex comedy, not quite that disgusting, but they needed to kind of go a little crazier with it. Just playing it like a straight romantic comedy in this, it doesn't work. So this leads us to the second big problem with this movie, the biggest problem with this movie. And that is, so what we just looked at is, this is the movie with just that premise as its starting point. Now, if you do that, then naturally there are going to be questions. But if you just kind of say, this is the way the world is, just accept it for, the sake of this movie.
Just repeat to yourself, it's just a show. I should really just relax.
If you say that, okay, some people can, some people can't. But the other way to go with this is to actually try to explain the way that all of this is supposed to work. And when you do that, your movie actually has to become about the premise. And when it's not, it just leaves the whole thing feeling empty. Case in point, anybody remember back when the original Purge movie came out? And one of the selling points of that movie was that it had a really interesting hook. The idea of one night a year, everything is legal and you can do anything you want. You know, this idea of catharsis, and you can do all these terrible things and there'll be no repercussions. And yeah, that's a great premise, but then the movie itself was just your standard kind of home invasion narrative, and all the Purge rules were basically just to provide a lazy excuse for why they don't call the cops. Yeah, it's like that. It wasn't until the sequels when they actually started to delve into, no, there's some political aspects to this. There's some ugliness behind this, and really started to explore some of those themes. This movie wants you to believe that that's what it's doing. So it actually goes into a lot of detail. So apparently, according to this film, this was a law that was pushed through somehow by Congress. And, you know, mainly the main face of it is one of these, like, moral babysitter politicians. You all know the type. Some of you voted for them. Who just kind of decided, yeah, we're going to do this. And there's a debate at one point, you know, between Colin Turner's mother and LeVar Burton. Yeah, LeVar Burton is in this. Why? What a fucking waste of LeVar Burton. Anyway, about, you know, how they did this without anybody voting for it. And, you know, through all of the city, there's these signs that say things like, you know, repeal the mandate, done oftentimes with a color scheme that is very reminiscent of, say, the transgender flag. Yeah, there's all this stuff about appealing it, and they talk about how it's reinforced. There's a whole bit where both of them get arrested, and Monica Barbaro is talking to the police detective about, you know, is this what you want to be wasting your time on? Is this what you really want to be, you know, trying to stop people from doing? You know, is this worth the man hour? You know, so it's raising all of these questions. Probably to prove to us, the audience, that yes, we have thought about this, and this is a very deep movie, you know, about things, and this is about freedom and about, you know, people trying to, you know, dictate how we live our lives and blah, 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 blah. Or it's trying to get ahead of CinemaSins, one of the two. But the problem is, you raise all of this, you talk about all this, you bring it up, but then nothing in the movie goes anywhere with it. It doesn't do anything with it. Okay, for example, you're very determined to show us that, you know, this is a real thing, and, you know, everybody seems to be abiding by it. Bullshit. This is when you start doing this, when you start explaining all of these things and how all this works, it just pokes holes in the fact that this would never fucking fly. The Purge is more likely to succeed than this. Americans didn't stop drinking when prohibition was a thing. You think we're going to stop fucking because the government tells us to? You really think that? Honest and for true. You know, they try to pass it off, you know, to people getting married so they're having proper marital sex because they want to have sex whenever they want. Yeah, bullshit. None of it works. Also, how the hell would this go? You know, this wouldn't work because half the people in Washington who, you know, who would have voted for this, that meant they couldn't have sex with their underage mistresses. So, you know, that would have been a thing. But unless of course they're trying to make a point of how the rich and, you know, the people who demand we live under these regimes don't actually follow the rules of decency themselves, and all the people screaming about family values are the ones who have multiple side partners whose children get pregnant out of wedlock, but it never brings any of this up. You see what I'm saying? It brings up this idea, but anytime you ask a question about it, about something that could have been an interesting direction to take with the movie, it doesn't do it. Another one, we see a couple same-sex couples in the background during this day. Our only gay character is Monica Barbara's roommate, who wants her to go out and get laid. She gives her the skimpy outfit. And Monica Barbara asks, well, what about you? And her friend says, oh, please, my people have been finding a way to have sex on the sly, from back in the Bible days. So you introduce this concept. Let's say that this is real. Let's say that this happens, that this law is passed. You're telling me that these same moral babysitters, the same people who would push through a law that says you can't have premarital sex except on this one day, that they'd stop there, that it wouldn't be a million times harder for same-sex couples? You're telling me that? So they introduce an opportunity to explore an interesting idea of the double standards for heterosexual relationships versus same-sex relationships, and they basically just brush it off. They do nothing fucking with it. It doesn't make any sense. Another thing is that, and again, they bring up when they're doing their exposition news report, that, oh yeah, this is working, STDs are down, teenage pregnancy is down. Yeah, because teenagers are known for following the law, right? Anyway, but they never kind of bring up, the idea of, yeah, maybe that's true, but I guarantee you in a world like this, fucking armed robbery is up. Violent crime is probably up because you're just pent up, bro. So yeah, it brings up this idea. It has these concepts that could have been interesting to explore, but doesn't do anything with them. And the most egregious example of this is the ending. Okay? This is when there have been 2 times in my life when something has taken me so by surprise, or I have been so dumbfounded by the sheer stupidity of something I've read or seen that I have literally, without being able to control it, said out loud, you have got to be fucking kidding me. Twice. And this was one of them. At the ending. Okay. Let me paint this for you. So we go through our rom-com, okay? And we get to the point where our star-crossed lovers suddenly discover they have feelings for each other, and they do the run to the airport.
Taxi! Taxi! The most amazing girl I've ever met leaves on a plane in 5 minutes!
What the hell's going on?
This guy's in love!
Is she worth it?
She's a once-in-a-lifetime girl!
I'll give you an escort.
Final boarding call for Ashley's flight to stuffy New England College. Final boarding.
Whoa, child! What's the hurry?
The love of my life, that's what!
We got a code Romeo. Repeat, code Romeo.
And of course, the ticking clock is there. You're down like under half an hour before you can't legally have sex for another year. They get together, and now if I had been writing this, let me tell you how I would have done this. They get together, and they find out that they're too late. The time limit has expired. And they kind of look at each other and go, oh, well, we missed our window. How I would have ended this is having them say, no, we're going to do it anyway. We're going to do it. We're going to get arrested, fined, jailed, whatever the penalty is in this world. because nobody can dictate to us, two consenting adults, when we fall in love, when we share something with someone else, when we connect with one another. That's our decision. It's not anyone else's, and it's certainly not the government's. And I would have had them, you know, they do it, they get arrested, and then maybe the movie would end officially with them kind of in handcuffs, holding hands or something. And then as the credits rolled, I'd show all these like newspaper clippings or newsreels about how people were suddenly sparked into revolution by this, and everybody said, you know, yeah, you're right, they can't do it. You know, we've been talking a good game, but nobody's done anything. Yeah, let's just fuck. And it, you know, the world becomes, you know, the United States just becomes one big, you know, Benny Hill sketch, more so than it is now. And, you know, the cops are overwhelmed. You can't possibly arrest everybody having sex. You know, the jails are overflowing, and they have no choice but to repeal this mandate. And it's all because these two people decided, no, we're in love and we make the choice. We don't let something else determine what makes the choice for us. It's pretty good, right? That's how I would have ended it. That's not how this movie ends. It ends, they're about to have sex. They have like 11 minutes left, and they both kind of stop and go, wait, maybe we should wait, and maybe we should get to know each other, and maybe we should da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then it goes 1 year later, and they're living together, they're a cute little couple, and they finally have sex. That's how this movie ends. And luckily I was alone in the theater. I could not prevent the "you have got to be fucking kidding me" from escaping my lips. And let me explain to you why. Let me give you some context here. It is not the messaging necessarily. I am, from my own personal experience, a proponent of the idea that people sometimes jump into sex too soon. And that I don't believe necessarily that you can blame media for everything, but I can say that it does send specific messaging. And a lot of movies and TV shows, especially when I was younger, kind of send that message that sex is the ultimate goal. That's one of the problems I had with the American Pie movie, other than the fact it was disgusting. But I watched it. I was of the right age to enjoy it. But this idea that sex was the end goal. We have to lose our virginity before we go to college. That just felt like an unhealthy mindset to me, and it still does. Now, again, this is just me. Other people can live your life the way you want to live it. I don't really care what you do so long as the person you do it with is consenting and of a legal age. After that, you know, everybody, fuck what you want to fuck and fuck it regular. That's my motto. Literally, that is. So the idea of a movie saying, wait, maybe sex shouldn't be our end goal, but we should wait and get to know each other and form a connection and therefore have the sex mean something, that is not inherently a bad thing in and of itself. It's actually a fairly emotionally healthy message. Like I said, that was one of the things I always had a hard time with, when watching Sex in the City. It's not that these women were sexually active. No problems there. Again, it's your body. It's your life. As long as you're consenting and the other person's of a legal age and also consenting, yeah, fine. I don't care if you have sex with every guy in the Manhattan area. But they followed this pattern, especially Charlotte and Miranda, who would have sex with a guy after knowing him for a minute and then start whining that he wasn't the perfect man. Well, he does this and he does that. And it's like, well, maybe you should, if you were looking for a long-term relationship, maybe you should have thought of that before you jumped into bed with him. All right? So again, I have no problem with the messaging in and of itself. What I have a problem with is the messaging as it relates to the world that they have set up. They have set up this world where this law was put into place. It's questionable about who voted for it, or if the government or these specific people just kind of took it upon themselves. Nobody's happy with it. You see fuck the mandate things all over, repeal the mandate. Everybody seems to hate this thing. The night itself puts so much stress on people to hook up. It's this whole thing that this is but the messaging that this final act sends is that, you know what? Those life-controlling conservatives, they actually have a good point. And maybe this is a good thing. Fuck you. You can't have your whole movie be setting up, unless this actually is a conservative movie, which if so, then I have been completely duped. But you can't set up this entire world saying this was imposed on us. Nobody wants it. Nobody likes it. It puts just too much pressure on everything. Everybody wants it repealed, and then have your main characters go, you know what? I actually think this controlling law that dictates when and I share myself with another human being, I think that's actually the bee's knees. Yeah, let's do it. Why don't we go get celibacy rings while we're at it? Hey, how about some chemical castration? That sounds great. Fuck you. Fuck this movie. Fuck your messaging. Because how do you not see the problem here? How do you not see the issue? The tonal and thematic elements that you have introduced, and you completely kick them in the balls. And that is the moment when this movie went from just kind of a wasted opportunity for me. All the stuff I'd said previously stood, but I was willing to kind of go, okay, you know, whatever. It's a movie that didn't quite work. That happened, and I was like, no, fuck this movie. Fuck this movie and its backward messaging. And the problem I really have is, the screenwriter was sitting there thinking they were making some amazing comment on relationships and really cutting through all the bullshit for us. And like, no, that is not what you are doing. Maybe it's what you intended to do, but it's not what you did. Thematically, totally, none of it matches. You know, I haven't felt this fucking confused. I remember a few years back, remember when the first Joker movie came out with Joaquin Phoenix? That, you know, that movie was all like, boo the rich person, boo rich people, oh, we hate rich people. Rich people are the root of all evil. And then that same month, or a month later, I think, the Downton Abbey movie came out, and that movie's like, hooray for the rich fucker! You know, hooray for that person because they give us jobs and we all depend on the rich fuckers to be rich. Hooray! That's like if they had done that at the end of the Joker. Is that at the end, Bruce Wayne like just went, here, I'll pay for everything. And everyone went, yay, the rich guy! Huzzah! Didn't like either one of those movies, by the way. Just, yeah. So, yeah. It completely falls apart. This movie is a mess. It is a structural, tonal, thematic fucking mess. Nothing about it works except for Monica Barbaro in that dress. I'm sorry. I'm a heterosexual man. You know, I calls him as I sees him. That's the only thing that makes this movie noteworthy. Everything else is bullshit and just disconnected, and do not waste your time on it, not even as a curiosity. The bad thing is, like I say, the conservatives will probably jump on this going, see, we're right. We were right. That white couple was much happier doing it the way we said and waiting till marriage. Hooray! You know, yeah. No, fuck this movie. Fuck everything about it. And not just on one day of the year. Fuck it every day and never speak of it again. Okay. I think that's everything I need to talk about. So let's wrap this up. So final grade for one night only, it's an F. It's an F on this one. Just completely complete failure. And what makes it even more depressing is that with a film like this, with a concept like this, someone had an idea. All right? And they clearly were trying to explore that idea and do something with that idea. And the fact that it failed so spectacularly is even more depressing, because I do feel like the movie was made with good intentions and like it was trying to do something different. But in the end, it falls apart on every level. So yeah, fuck this movie and don't watch it. Okay. So, that is all for me. Thank you for coming along with me on this extended rant. But, you know, if you're listening to me, that's what you've come for. Hope you're doing well. Take good care of yourselves. And as always, drive safe. And I will see you at the movies.